You're listening to the Southampton Dellivery Podcast, a podcast dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans.
If you want to have guarantees, you have to buy a washing machine.
Fonte with a scooping header.
We don't lose a match, either we win or we learn. And today we learned.
It's infield to Mane, 25 yards out. Lovely ball for Bella. Onside, 1-0. Buffon shot. Oh my word!
Unbelievable. We ran around the pitch like Bambi on ice. It was very, very embarrassing to watch.
And now, your host, Matt Markstone.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Southampton Dellivery Podcast, a podcast and newsletter dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans, and available right here on SouthamptonDellivery.com. My name is Matt Markstone. I am the host of the show, and no matter where you are, no matter how you may be listening, whether this is your first time or you've been here before, thanks for making the show part of your day. I hope that you enjoy it, and I hope that you enjoyed the way Saints started the 2021 calendar year. Thankfully, they did not start it in the way that they ended 2020. Thank God that is behind us, and there's no guarantee that this will be better. Saints had a good calendar year in terms of their performances and points they put up, but let's hope that for everybody's sake, 2021 is different. And the way Saints started this year, they got a victory over Liverpool, something that they hadn't done since Ronal Koeman was in charge. We came from behind to beat them 3-2 at St. Mary's, but a backs to the wall performance at times, but something they got the job done, and that's really at this point all that matters. And if you look at the way Ralph reacted at the end of the game, you can see how much it means to him and how much it means to the players, and I think it means that much to us as well. But just the manager showing that emotion, I think, is something hopefully we realize now how much he cares about the club and how much he cares about winning and seeing us progress, and it was good to see. So this is the first show of 2021, so welcome if this is your first time. Hopefully you enjoy it. This week I am joined by Jacob Tanswell. Jacob writes for Prost International and does a fantastic job. We'll talk a little bit about his writing and his career and things like that in part one. And normally we just kind of go through all in one go, from career to your questions to the game or whatever. But because the game was being played on a Monday night and this comes out on a Tuesday morning, the timeline is a little messed up. So Jacob and I talked on Sunday afternoon and took care of all the part one stuff. So you'll notice we're a little bit more somber. We weren't really expecting to beat Liverpool, honestly. So we were kind of looking at the way 2020 ended. And, at least myself, I'll be honest that I was kind of thinking 2021 was going to start that way as well. But thankfully, Saints turned that around. And so by the time you get to part two, where we recap the Liverpool match, we're a little bit more jubilant. And I'll be honest, I am pretty tired just from watching that. I have no idea how the guys put in that effort, but they did. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the episode. This is Jacob Tanswell. You can follow him on Twitter at @J_Tanswell. And of course, links are in the show notes. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you on the other side. I'd like to welcome to the Southampton Dellivery Podcast, Jacob Tanswell. You can find him on Twitter at @J_Tanswell. His writing is on Prost and several other sources. But Jacob, welcome to the show, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Matthew. It's been a while, me and you talking, but I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah. It's you're starting to make the rounds on the podcast, which is I think a good thing. But it could also just be a giant time suck. And if it takes away from writing articles, kindly tell us all to leave you alone and let you keep writing, because I think we're all enjoying it. But why don't we start with this? What's your history with Southampton? Are you Southampton born and bred, or did you move down there for university, or what's your kind of history with the city and the club?
So I was born in Southampton. I've always lived in Southampton. I still live in now. In terms of being around the club, I first went to a game at St. Mary's when I was 3 years old. I used to play football a lot, so I didn't really was able to go to as many games as I would like until I was getting a season ticket. But then eventually, when I did start focusing on journalism as opposed to playing, I then came more regularly. And it's at probably Christmas time last year where I started going to games in the press box and since then, since Project Restart, I've been going every game, and it's been excellent, really.
You found a way in once they stopped letting the fans in, so good for you. You mentioned playing. What position did you play?
So I initially, as I'm sure everybody, was a striker to start off with. Then they realised I was 8 years old and I was quite tall for my age, so they put me a centre back, and I've played there ever since. I
played as a 6-year-old or whatever goalkeeper, and then I didn't play until I was an adult after that, and then I started playing defense, usually left back, and then somebody on my team said, look, if you make a mistake right there, the other team scores, go play like left wing, because at least then if you make a mistake, it takes a while for the other team to score. So I've gone the opposite way, but not for good reasons. But anyway, your playing career, did you play all the way through, like just as a kid, just kind of normal stuff, or was it something that you kind of wanted to be involved in football kind of your whole life? You wanted to make a career of it, or how did that work?
Yeah, so I first joined the team when I was 4 years old. I played for that team for about 3 years. I was always playing a year above though, and the FA changed the rules back, I think it was about 8, so I had to join another team, and then when I did join another team, that's where it really took off really. I got scouted by AFC Bournemouth as a striker, as I said, and then I went to centre back. I played for Bournemouth for 7 years, got released when I was 16. I then went to Eastleigh Football Club. I became a scholar there, but then that was probably the time where, as I got released, when I realised that although I enjoyed playing, for me, writing was my passion, and that's something that I really want to go down.
You also wrote a piece, that transition from being released and things like that. People deal with that. We saw stuff with the former Manchester City academy player and things like that. And it's a tough kind of thing, because you kind of put all of your effort and energy into this one thing, and then for seemingly no reason, people just go like, okay, see you later. And so were you writing during that time? Were you kind of enjoying like the English assignments, or what was it about writing that kind of drew you in?
I always loved English at school, and as I was just probably getting to my last year at Bournemouth, I started taking a real interest in different journalists, the way they wrote. But what I loved about English was that, unlike maths, where there is a set answer, where there is a right or a wrong, black or white, in English you could do whatever you want. There was no layout. You could use your imagination, and for me that was something that I really found fascinating. And for me, that's when it just started building and having more confidence, really. When
you also write about other sports, so you write for boxing. You're the boxing editor at Prost. And how did that come to be? Did you have an interest in boxing as well, or was it just kind of that was available and you said like I'll do it because it's writing, or how did that go?
So I first started picking up on boxing about 4 years ago as well. And like I look around, especially in the UK, there's not really that many sites that cover football and boxing and other sports as well, and I think there's a real dearth of interest in boxing from the media, considering that in the UK, Anthony Joshua sells out 90,000. It's quite a big sport right now. So I just started thinking about boxing. I love the storylines that come with it, the characters and stuff, and it's just easy to write about really when you get that. But I also cover cricket as well, so during the summer here I go to Hampshire games, and that's really exciting and quite laid back because you've got 4 days to write about one article. So yeah, it's a lot more chilled than going to St Mary's.
Yeah, I was going to say that you have football where it's 90 minutes, and then you're probably due some sort of deadline shortly after that, which means you have to you probably craft some of the story before the game ever starts, and then you either change or adapt as the game goes on, and then you have to put the beginning and end on it at the end of it. And I know that listening to other journalists talk about that, it just sounds way more stressful than I would ever want to do, and it takes me way too long to write, so I can never do that stuff. But and then cricket, like you said, you're kind of sitting there. I don't understand cricket scoring, and Richard Brereton will jokingly send me cricket scores and go like, "Good luck, figure it out." And it's like I got no idea what's happening here. But I guess, do you have a favorite? Is there some one that you enjoy covering more than the other, or is it all just kind of you enjoy it all and that's why you do it?
I think it depends. I think in terms of excitement, for me, boxing and football take over from cricket, especially football in a game that's just high pressurized and there's a crowd in there, especially. That's just fantastic. But if you want to relax and put your feet up and then have a bit of food and write sometimes, I think cricket is definitely the way to go.
Okay. So you've been covering Saints now for Prost for you said since Project Restart, basically since last December or so.
Yeah, it really picked up as Project Restart began.
Okay, and my experience with Prost is Steve Clare. Do you know Steve? I assume.
Yeah.
One of the nicest guys that I've ever kind of worked with or talked to. In football, and there are a lot of nice people, but Steve for a while was living kind of on the West Coast out here. So we were on a similar, in terms of time, same time zone and all that stuff. So we talked quite a bit. And I'm glad now that he is got writers like you, because before he would go like, hey, do you want to write a season preview? And I'd be like, I'm not very good at this. I'll do it, whatever. And I'm glad to see that now he's got you and a couple of other guys. I think Dan is also writing for him for different clubs. And it's nice to see that he's got actual journalists working for him, and you guys are writing informative pieces. And it's different than what you get from the big newspapers, because we get, very little coverage there. We do have Dan, who's over Dan Sheldon, who's writing for The Athletic. But that's behind a paywall. So I think, the work that Steve and you are doing over at Prost is fantastic, and I hope it continues. And I just wanted to make sure I put that out there. But I guess what was your coming into it last December, January, when it started to pick up, what was your kind of feeling around the club? Because at that point, Boxing Day was great last year, I think, against Chelsea, but building up to that, we hadn't had the best of falls. And what was the mood around the team at that time? And then how did that impact your writing, or did that impact how you wrote about it, or anything like that?
Well, the first game I think I went to in the press box was Southampton Everton. I think that was the first home game since the 9-0. And I expected, going into the ground, a big reaction. I thought, here's Southampton, they're going to show they're over that 9-0 defeat. But then they lost 2-1. And I remember going to the press conference afterwards, and Hasenhuttl, for me, he just looked like a broken man. I remember I wrote a piece afterwards saying, right man, wrong time. And I still believe that then. And I looked at him, I thought, even though if you can turn this around, I don't think you've got the energy left in you. But ever since, I think the transformation has just been fantastic. In that time where they were stuck in limbo, Southampton, he decided to take the positive route. He scrapped the 5 at the back, if you remember, went to 4 at the back, and he really just thought, you know what, I can't get much lower than the 9-0 defeat. I'm just going to go for this. And since that, their bravery it's been excellent to watch, and it's been excellent to cover.
Do you think, there was a lot of talk at that point about the mood and kind of in St. Mary's and things like that, and kind of the way the fans were reacting to the team playing. Do you think that, this is going back a little ways, but do you think that the, missing out on fans being in the stadium actually kind of helped us a little bit in terms of it just allowed the team to play with a little bit less pressure, I guess?
I think before Project Restart began, I thought, and I'm sure most supporters thought that probably would benefit Saints, especially now this season, where they're playing out from the back a lot more, they're taking more risks, as opposed to last year. It looks a bit rabbit in the headlights in the way they kept long ball. Mm-hmm. They weren't quite sure what they were doing at the back, and sometimes for Southampton supporters that are accustomed to seeing more direct football, then they're probably frustrated, and you do see some groans sometimes, and that probably transmits onto the pitch. But having basically no one there, it's a training session pit game, inclined to take more risk, and as a result, I think it lends itself to the way Hasenhuttl wants to play.
Yeah, I think going into this season, you can see some of the balls, especially from Vestergaard. We see how much we're missing that, because those diagonals to Kyle Walker-Peters a lot of times really do force it forces the defense to shift, and it really gives us a chance to get on the attack pretty quickly. Whereas every time Alex McCarthy kicks the ball long, I basically just assume we're going to lose it, which is kind of what we saw last year. Last year it wasn't a big deal because we just pumped it long, and then we try to win the second ball or force it away. But now we're actually trying to build attacks, which we'll come on to talk about a little bit, because Saints have gone from that Everton match and have progressed a lot on the pitch. You've seen the team change just a little bit in terms of Vestergaard coming in for Stevens. You've seen Romeu come in and replace Højbjerg towards the end of last season and into this season. So the core of the team has kind of stayed the same. Walcott's played a big role, but Southampton were going to have to always progress on the pitch in terms of they weren't always going to be able to just rely on other teams trying to play through the middle and winning the ball back. They were going to have to figure out how to break teams down themselves, and you can see that coming to a point now where we are struggling to create chances. the early run this season was great. Not the first 2 games, obviously, but since then. And then the last 5, it kind of has, the attacks kind of petered out a little bit. We haven't been creating as many chances. And I don't know how you feel about advanced analytics. I know you have some of them in your pieces, but some people don't always like them. XG and things like that. I think sometimes they just back up what you see or what you think you see. So, I mean, looking at Saints' last 5 matches coming into the Liverpool match, because we're talking, this is part 1. We're going to talk before and then we'll talk after the match as well. But 1 win, 3 draws, 1 loss, 4 goals scored. I think only, was it 2 or 3 goals against? 2 goals against, I think. But an XG of 0.59, 0.12, and 0.67 in the last 3, which are not great. And I'm starting to get a little worried because we're starting to see, I think, some of the same patterns of just failing to break teams down, which I think is a struggle that teams at our level are going to face because we maybe don't have the quality up front that we need to, like Manchester City or Liverpool, to be able to do that. And yet we're seem to be kind of struggling for ideas, I guess.
Yeah, if you look at the XG rate throughout the season, I think you could always see this type of thing coming because Southampton, Danny Ings, Ward-Prowse, they were performing way above the expected goals rate. You saw that against Aston Villa, obviously, with a 4-3 win. But no one expected Southampton to be this ball heavy in terms of having this much possession. I always thought they could maybe 50-50 it in terms of possession, but now it's become more extreme than I could ever imagine, and it's a testament to how confident they are on the ball. But at the moment, obviously, Southampton love to play through central areas, don't they? And I think if at the moment, teams which started against Wolves when they played 4 at the back with an extra midfielder in there just to suffocate the midfield, are figuring it out now. So I think Southampton just needs to be a little bit more adaptable, and they just need to be a little bit more quick in when they do get into them wide areas. I think you see it with Bertrand and Gineppo, something's not quite right at the moment, but I think if they two can sort it out, maybe a return to form for Nathan Redmond and Stuart Armstrong, I expect Southampton to hopefully start regaining their goal scoring touch.
That was another thing, is those wide positions, the 10s you wrote about it, where they're required to do so much, and yet their creativity hasn't been there. They haven't created very many big chances. They haven't been all that involved in goal scoring or assists this season. And I guess the more they start to kind of tire and pull back in terms of what they're creating in front of goal, obviously that coincided with the exit of Danny Ings for a couple of weeks, and Che Adams works his socks off and has gotten a lot better in terms of shooting and scoring and things like that from when he first came to the team. But we just seem to be missing that all at once, which is not obviously what you want from a team. And I guess the good news is we've been playing defensively. We've been pretty good. McCarthy's been good. And even when Stevens came in, we looked, decent at the back, which I think is a big, that's what you need. You need to build from that, I guess, as well. So, is it, I guess, would you say it's more, is it down to us being tired, or is it down to teams adapting more so? And then I guess if you're trying to tweak this and make it work, what do you think Hasenhuttl does on the pitch, given the players he has? Well,
I think throughout the season, teams are always going to be figured out because obviously the amount of analytics that go on in football nowadays. And a lot of teams now know that Southampton, their main source of goals come through central areas. So when you're defending in a low block, it's quite easy just to defend, sit back. And the way you can break down a team that sits back is keep stretching them side to side, side to side. And at the moment, I don't see Southampton utilise them wings enough. A lot of it, Gineppo likes to tuck in, Armstrong, Walcott, they like to be central. And obviously that's great in some games. Mm-hmm. But I think if they can just hold their width a little bit out on the wings, then you can stretch the other team, and then eventually gaps and holes will appear through the middle for the likes of Danny Ings, Che Adams, whoever plays up front to exploit.
Yeah. I think talking about Gineppo a little bit, I've been somewhat critical of him, not because he's not great. The creativity is great, but looking at him and kind of the way that Ralph plays, we were talking about this on a Patreon episode, like, if you go back to Arsene Wenger and his Arsenal, it was jazz, right? It was free form, and he allowed just guys to go out and express themselves. Hasenhutl's not playing jazz. He's more of like I would say he's conducting an orchestra, and people have to be in time and be in rhythm. And it sometimes looks like Djenepo is like, I'm just going to go ahead and solo here, and I'm going to do, and that's great at times, but he seems to leave his teammates kind of wondering where he's going to be. And for me, that's been one of the most frustrating things, because if you looked at the partnership that Bertrand and Redmond had developed over time, they looked comfortable. They knew where each other were going to be on the pitch. They could play one-time passes to each other and things like that. And it seems like whenever Bertrand looks up, he's got to take an extra touch and kind of try to figure out where Djenepo is and things like that. And I think that partnership hasn't developed yet. And I don't want to blame Djenepo, because he's the player that he is, and he's going to learn. He's young. But I do think that is impacting us a little bit on the left. Because I think we're relying a lot on Kyle Walker-Peters to get forward on the right, and with no depth at that position too. It is a little bit worrying for me, how he's going to hold up over the course of an entire season. But yeah, that's just kind of I guess where I'm at with that. But do you think now, like based on what we have, the small injuries that the squad is taking up and picking up over time, do you think that they go into the January window with a need to pick up players? And then do you think that will actually happen? Do you think we'll actually see new faces around the squad come the end of the month?
I don't expect there to be any permanent signings, no. But I think you look at, especially them fullback positions, that it's in a very precarious state at the moment, isn't it? You talk about Walker-Peters, and you're completely right. But if he gets injured, I don't think Hasenhuttl will go for Valerie. I think he'd probably move more Prost there or something.
Yeah.
And that means you take away more Proust's bite in the middle of the park. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, Bertrand, I think he's played one of the most amount of minutes, only second to Ward Prowse in 2020. And for a 32-year-old, that's pretty good going.
Yeah.
So, if they had replacements, if Vokins was able to step up, I'm not sure he's quite ready yet. If Valerie was what we thought he might be a couple of years ago, then that would be fine. But I think there's a real issue there. And if them two get injured, then you'll see maybe problems starting to occur. But at the moment, touch wood, they're okay, and they can keep going.
Yeah. All right. My worry, I hate the January transfer window with a passion. I hate the summer transfer window as well. And I realize that we need players to come in, but the speculation around all of it always seems to be, I think Martin Simmons pointed out, talking about one of the, Alex Frick, one of the bigger, more well-known writers or commentator, whatever you want to call him. And he just said he doesn't know what he's talking about. Like these things are, we're all making stuff up basically when it comes to the transfer window, which I laughed, but I also kind of there was a tear there too, because it's like, well, if he doesn't know, then what are we actually going to do? And people just get riled up on the internet about players coming in or not coming in or whatever. There's something today about Michael Obafemi potentially going on loan, which, if I hadn't seen him in previous seasons, I would say he's about like Salisu, and I don't know if he's actually a real person. But there it is. And I mean, we're gonna have the Liverpool match. By the time people hear this, we'll have played Liverpool. And then I think the FA Cup match is next. And I guess just, do you anticipate Salisu getting a start there, or do you think he's still going to be held out for one reason or another?
I'm really looking forward to that Shrewsbury game, because when the draw got completed, I predicted that I think Salisu will make his first appearance against Shrewsbury. But it'll be just great to see them guys that are on the periphery, who clearly Ralph doesn't really trust at the moment. The likes of Valerie, Vokins, Fraser Forster, Salisu, who we don't know what's been going on with him recently. It's been a little bit weird how he's not really said much, or the social media's not quite covered him. But it'd be great to see them, good to see how they adjust to the system. And yeah, I think Salisu, as you, me, we're all really excited to see him, because he comes with a big reputation. He's been on the bench the last 3 or 4 games, but we've not really seen him. We haven't seen him at all play.
Yeah. It's I mean, watching some of his highlights from when he was playing in Spain, it looks great physically, and I think we just have to be patient with him learning the game and learning the system and everything else. And I think a lot of people wanted him to come in instead of Stevens a couple weeks ago, and I just think having him and Bednarak on the same pitch, I don't think that's quite the partnership we want. I think we want we've seen how important Vestergaard is playing the ball out, bringing the ball out, and I don't think Bednarak or Salisu are that type of player yet. Maybe they will become that, but they're not there yet. So I think that having having Stevens in there for now is probably the better partner for Bednarak, and we'll see who gets to play alongside who once Shrewsbury comes up. And I guess if it's Stevens and Salisu, I think we'll know who's I guarantee you, or I can't guarantee anything, but I think what'll happen is Stevens will shift across to the right, Salisu will play on the left because that's his preferred side, and I think that'll show us exactly what the pecking order is like in the center back partnership, who moves for who there. Let's jump into some listener questions. People can send in questions on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You can send in emails, direct messages, all that stuff. It just look for the post or just send them in. It doesn't really matter. We got one from I don't know if it's a friend of yours, but it's somebody you know, Ryan Honey. He does the thing that everybody does. He says, "Hi, Mark," and then apologizes for it. People call me Mark all the time. It happens. So anyway, do you think Southampton should be gunning for Europa League football this season? And do you think they are good enough to compete should they get there? So we'll start with that one first. And I guess just coming into the season based on Project Restart and all that stuff, Southampton's form was phenomenal. We tailed off a little bit in the winter, which was, as you wrote in your piece, probably always going to happen given the effort that's required in the size of the squad. But do you think we're good enough to get there, or do you think we're going to wind up coming up a little bit short if the fixtures continue to pile up the way they are?
It's one of these seasons where I think it's impossible to predict anything. The amount of games that are coming, coronavirus, all the other mitigating factors, it's impossible to even foresee the next couple of weeks. You've just got to take a game at a time. But when Southampton are on form, in tune, for me, they can get into Europe. With their pressing, with everything, but the issue is they've not always got the quality. Most teams they play against, they've got a far superior bench. You saw that against West Ham. So Southampton really rely on work rate to beat other teams. The idea of the collective beating the individual, and with these amount of games coming up and this squad that is teetering on the edge of complete collapse and injuries, it'll be difficult. But I think if they've got a great team spirit. You can see that. And in these crazy of seasons and in these uncertain times, why not?
Yeah. I guess when you look at the teams that are in the Europa League now, do you see Southampton being able to compete with some of them, or do you think that because obviously you've been watching Saints for a long time, you've been a lifelong fan. When we got there last time, we could have competed, I think, and yet we still managed to just kind of fall short. It seems like every time. At every obstacle we just seem to come up a little bit short. Do you think the squad is? I guess my biggest concern is that the squad's not deep enough to be able to play that number of games. We're seeing what this fixture congestion is doing to the team now, let alone playing Thursday, Sunday, which means I have to get up at 4 a.m., which is not really. I mean, I'll do it, but we better be playing well if I'm going to be doing that.
I think, but you've got to take into consideration next year. There'll be more rotation in the squad, and you hope by the time that does roll around with the work Rail Parsons was doing with the B team, that the academy players will be able to step up and then play them Europa League games, whoever you're playing, whether it's in Israel or Turkey, So I'd hope next year, Parsons, what I'm sure he is, and the rest of the backroom staff are thinking we're going to start slowly integrating these young lads into the first team picture and playing more games.
All right. Ryan also asks, he says, what areas of the team do you think need bolstering in the January window? Would you say it's the fullback position, and or would you say that it's the wide attacking areas, or where would you think if you're just going to look at an area of the pitch to just I guess bolster, where would you go?
I think as we touched on, I think the fullback positions are obviously where there could be a reason to strengthen. But I remember writing about this last year. I kind of miss Southampton having this classic number 10 playmaker. Southampton don't have one at the moment, obviously. Stuart Armstrong can do it, but that's not his natural position. I miss that Dusan Tadic, that Adam Lallana, even Gaston Ramirez, a guy that floats around sometimes, but he can thread a pass through. And in these games, like we saw against West Ham, you just need somebody who can just compose themselves and see them balls into the likes of Ings, Adams, even Walker Peters, who's been making some excellent runs. Mm-hmm. So at the moment, I think Southampton are missing that little bit of guile and a bit of quality in between the lines and in that number 10 position.
Yeah. I think those players are expensive. Maybe, I don't know. Mesut Ozil's available, right? Like he's just hanging out. He's not doing anything.
I'm not sure if he whip the press.
Yeah, no, he doesn't. No, that's definitely not. Alex Robinson, who's on Twitter at AR0BINS, says, I've been reading Jacob's articles and was wondering what's the next step for Southampton in terms of their progression on the pitch. And I guess I was thinking about this, and we've gone from a team who could, kind of counterattack or just defend. We were defending with 5 defenders for a long time. We abandoned that. We started just trying to kind of pump it long and then kind of win the ball high up the pitch and get a shot off within 1 or 2 passes. And now we're kind of going to a team where we are conducting. We have so much more possession, as you mentioned earlier, where we're trying to do that. What do you think, I guess, is the next step for the team in terms of continuing to progress? And I guess, do you think we have the quality to do it?
I think it's just purely adding more strings to your bow, being less predictable. At the moment, Southampton are kind of being a little bit predictable, obviously with other factors, as you said. But I would like just to see the likes of Gineppo, them wide players, take on their fullbacks a little bit more. 1v1, Ryan Bertrand, Walker Peters overlapping. At the moment, everything's so inward. I'd just like to see Southampton put more crosses into the box, because I think Che Adams, we don't really see it. He's not a bad head of the ball. No. It's just Southampton don't put a lot of crosses aerially into the box. I think that's probably a route Southampton can go down in terms of getting more goals and creating more chances.
We also have some questions from the Patreon Discord channel. Patrons, of course, get priority for having their questions answered on the show, assuming I don't forget they exist at all. Dave Lee says, I'm sure you'll touch on these, but what can Southampton do to turn around their scoring drought? We kind of talked about that, become less predictable. Keys to finding formats. Again, we did discuss that, but thank you, Dave. Kevin says, what are the chances of us having a squad big enough to have 2 quality players at each position? And if you kind of think about the squad, Ralph definitely seems to have his first 11. And then I think we have, maybe 1 extra wide player or maybe 2 extra wide players. But then after that, we kind of fall apart. Like we don't have the depth. And you mentioned looking at the squad or the bench just against West Ham and things like that. I mean, it's going to take time for us to build those academy players into I guess, things that it's going to take time for Ralph to build the academy players into people he can trust on the pitch. And I don't really see us going out in January and bringing in a ton of people. That's obviously not how the club works. But, I guess how long does it take for that to happen? And do you think it'll be mostly academy players, or do you think that the Saints will have to make some signings just to give some depth to the squad?
I think always bringing in fresh faces, of course, stimulates the existing group, and then it probably helps them progress in themselves. I just think it all depends on the coaching, and we know Hasenhuttl is just fantastic. He's a fantastic coach first and foremost, and I think that a team like Southampton, where they haven't got as much money, they can't do what a Pep and City do, where they think, right, we need a goalkeeper, let's try and get 2 until one of them works. They need to continually learn from their mistakes, give them opportunities, and I think, especially for these young lads, I think they do need to have opportunities in the team. The likes of Smallbone, Vokins, they will get chances, but it's about not just putting them in for the Shrewsbury game, maybe the FA Cup game after that. Obviously, this year, the fruits might not pay, but next year, I think they'll be much better for it.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it's going to be, I think it's going to take a significant amount of time, because we can watch them play, the B team games and things like that, and they look great, but that level isn't quite, obviously it's not Premier League level. But I think we've seen, Lindelof and guys come in and play and look fine for short spells in games. And, but we also saw that with Josh Sims a couple of years ago. He came off the bench a couple of times late in games, looked great. But then for some reason never got a chance. And when he did start, kind of seemed to disappear. And I think that's, we want to get excited as fans about players and we see what they do when they come off the bench and they go, oh, they look great. Why aren't they starting and this and that? And there's a lot, I think they just have to remind ourselves there's a lot more that goes into it than what we see just in the 90 minutes or the 95 minutes that we get to watch them play on the pitch. And, from training to just their understanding and things like that. And I think over the course of a game, when other managers watch our team, they will find holes. And if a player isn't up to snuff, they will of course be found out. I think that's what makes the Premier League so entertaining, is that there's this constant kind of battle between managers and players and everything else. And I think it's going to take some time for us to do that. But I do think that if we go into the Europa League or anything like that, we're going to need to have those players. And I think, we'll actually get to see, the academy players probably get more of a shot, like as you mentioned, if we do get or progress that far. But we've fallen a little bit from our time at the top of the table there for a couple of days. We're gonna have to turn our form around if we want to keep that up. So, but that does it for part one. Just a reminder, this is being recorded before the Liverpool game, and we'll come back with part two in just a moment. We'll recap the Liverpool game and all that. But Jacob, thanks for joining me, and we'll talk to you again in just a minute. All right, Jacob Tanswell, welcome back. Since we talked last time, you've gone to the stadium. You've seen Southampton beat Liverpool. You're one of the few people that actually got to see the match. I don't think any of us were expecting that, but how are you feeling right now, 11:50 p.m. on Monday, January 4th?
I just feel completely privileged to be able to be there and just to watch that, in person, that performance, that display of just everything that Southampton are about now, that fight, that character. And you just saw at the end with Ronal Koeman going to his knees. That was just a culmination. That second half where just constant waves of attack and the way they just slid for every ball. They were cheering for every throw, and it was just remarkable to see. And just everyone in the ground was just so tense. And then that final whistle to blow and that outpouring of emotion to come in was just absolutely remarkable to see. And as I said, I'm really, really lucky to have been there.
I have no idea how any of the guys are still standing because I'm exhausted having just watched that performance. And, I thought when we scored in the second minute, I thought that's too early. Like there's no way we can do this, but we did. And it was a team that was changed. It was a team that, you look at it and you just look at on paper and go, this probably isn't going to, go very well for us. And yet you could see that we, as the game went on, we did not want to lose. The guys did not want to lose. They were going to do everything they could to make sure that we didn't lose. And in the end, they did it. But I was really worried for portions of that, especially in the second half, as you said, Liverpool just came wave after wave after wave. We couldn't get it away, and you just start to see the team sucking deeper and deeper and deeper, and you just go like, I don't know how this is going to go. But man, I'm exhausted. That's just from watching it. But let's try to go through this a little bit. The lineup comes out. McCarthy, obviously, positive COVID test. Ralph was back on the sideline, given that his wife had tested negative now. Hopefully she recovers and all that stuff. And hopefully McCarthy also gets healthy. But looking at the lineup, some changes there and some late additions and things like that. Forster comes in goal. The back line, essentially, after that stays the same. Stevens is in for Vestergaard, who's out injured. In midfield, Diallo comes in for Romeu. And then Adams is missing as well. And we have Walcott playing up top, Janebo out on the left, and Armstrong on the right. And I mean, looking at that lineup and then looking at, Thiago's back for Liverpool and their front three are all there. And, what were you kind of looking or expecting once you saw how the team was going to line up and kind of what were your feelings when that came out?
Well, we heard about yesterday about Alex McCarthy missing the game, but then it came as a surprise that Oriol Romeu wouldn't be there. And Che Adams was touch and go, and obviously he missed out in this case. But I think when the team sheet came out and you saw that sub bench as well, where it was Shane Long and the rest were just academy players, you just thought, you know what, guys, just give it your best shot. Obviously, Liverpool have just got this unbelievable team, and they've got Thiago back, which just makes everything 10 times worse for you when you're trying to win the ball back. But just do your best. Maybe see a slight improvement on the West Ham game. Maybe just see a little bit of attack, or just something so you can take them to the next game after this. But to do what they did, especially with the players that came in as well, they just fitted in fantastically, and I'm sure we'll get onto that. But yeah, really, really impressed by the guys that are not perceived to be in the strongest team, but the guys that came in who were on the periphery, they were excellent too.
And I think it just says a little bit more about what Ralph's been able to do with the team. And I think in part one, before the game, we were kind of talking about, we were worried that some of those guys, was the team deep enough? Were they going to be able to step up? And if we go and make it into the Europa League, how are we going to wind up, coping with that? And today you saw some of the younger guys are still very raw. They're still, they're going to make mistakes. They're going to go through patches in a game where they're not going to be able to really get their foot in. But then you see some of the signings and some of the recruitment that Saints have made. And Diallo looked really, really good in the midfield. And kind of all the guys that came in did their job. They did enough. And, going back to the first part again, when everybody plays their role and does their job, things do work. And sometimes you have to get a little bit lucky. Liverpool definitely, weren't on their A game in terms of finishing, but I think we did everything we could to make it hard for them. And I think Sky Sports gave us, 20 seconds about how good we were, and the rest of it was how Liverpool failed. And I think, we deserve a little bit more than that, based on, how well we played tonight in the execution. You could see that at the end with Ralph. But, let's go start from the very beginning. The first real, talking point is we get a set piece. We have been a threat from set pieces this year. We've done well from them, but we're missing Vestergaard. We've seen a lot of balls go towards the back post for him to be headed back across, and he's not there. And instead we go near post, just kind of flick it over the wall. Ings makes the run. And what a finish. You could see Jack Stevens kind of screaming for the ball to come across. And it's like, look, man, I know you can kick it too, but like, let's just let Danny Ings do what Danny Ings does. But what was, what was your reaction? I know obviously you're in the press area, so you can't celebrate, but what was your reaction when you saw that play kind of unfold?
Well, you sensed it before the free kick was taken. I remember Ward-Prowse went to do a quick one, but then I think Ronal Koeman was shouted just to delay the move. And in terms of the setup, it wasn't the usual setup of Saints. Normally they're all stationed at the far post, but Danny Ings and another player, I can't remember who, at the front post, like we said. And I just sensed something was a little bit different, and they might try something here. You've seen it this season a lot, actually, for Southampton. They're being a little bit more creative with their set pieces. They're taking short ones, going crosses with different angles on, and they've been a lot more inventive. And I think we saw that there straight away. And you just sensed something was coming, especially with Trent Alexander-Arnold, who's not the greatest in the air or dealing with aerial balls. And that, in order for that goal to be scored, my reaction was, what a pass from Ward-Prowse, and then what a timing of run and dink from Danny Ings. Everything had to be perfect for that goal to score, and luckily it was.
Initially I wasn't really sure how that was gonna work. You look at the angle he had, and you look at it didn't really seem like there was a shot there. And then when the ball went up in the air, I initially thought it was going to go out of play, not even close, just because the camera angle that we had. But to see it come down into the far side of the net, and I think one of the pictures that one of the Saints camera guys got, just Alisson he's got no chance to save it, and he's just hoping, it goes over, and luckily for us, and luckily for, I think, everyone, it didn't. And I don't know, you could just see kind of what it meant to everybody as they celebrated, and you could see Stevens go from pointing where he wanted the ball to just the arms slowly go up in the air, and then he just sprints toward Ings, who has scored a ton of goals for us and didn't really get a chance for Liverpool, even though it's his former club. And it just means a lot. But then, at that point, we're in the third minute of the game by the time the celebration's done, and we have to, you look ahead and go like, it's 87 minutes and Liverpool are going to be coming. And they did. I mean, they dominated possession. They dominated most aspects of that game in terms of the statistics. But I don't know. How worried were you that we were going to cave and give that up? And then, are there any moments in particular where you thought we looked particularly vulnerable?
Well, since I've got here, I've seen quite a lot of people being critical of Liverpool's performance. I thought, apart from the final four, I thought they were good. I thought Thiago, like Robertson, Alexander, they switched the ball fantastically. They moved it quickly. And afterwards, Jurgen Klopp said a lot of teams would normally cave into this type of pressure from us. And Southampton, he said, were on the edge of it, but we never quite managed it. And that just shows you that although Liverpool were good, they weren't able to finish it off. And I thought that throughout. I never felt like Southampton were in real huge danger of just completely collapsing. Yeah, Liverpool might get a goal. I never felt Southampton were out of it at any point. They were always there. They were always throwing their bodies on the line. And I think that's a testament more to Southampton than a criticism of Liverpool. They just couldn't get that final pass right because the likes of Bednarek, Stevens, Walker-Peters were just throwing their bodies on the line. And Southampton were close to maybe conceding at some points, but then they just reacted with a fantastic tackle out of nowhere. And for me, that was the most pleasing thing about today.
Yeah, I think there were several instances where Bednarak, Stevens, and Kyle Walker-Peters were all sliding in, blocking balls, coming up big, and that's what you have to do if you're gonna win games like that. And to see us, having come from a couple of subpar performances where we seem to lack that kind of that vigor, that passion, that energy, whatever it is, to come in now and put in this performance, it really says that that's there the whole time. Sometimes you just need a rest, you just need something to kickstart it. And I think I don't like to see us defend that deep, but sometimes you just have to. The game plan plays out that way, and that's just what you have to do. There were a couple of moments, as you said, where we didn't ever really look out of it. And especially, I think, in the first half, we were playing with Liverpool a lot. Moussa Djenepo obviously had to go off injured at some point, but he made a really good turn on Trent Alexander-Arnold, where he just kind of completely took him out of the game and beat him down the line. And then I think the ball was just too far in front of Armstrong. But when it was Armstrong against Jordan Henderson, I kind of went like, hey, this is a race we can win. And I wonder if Liverpool fans felt the same way. That's like us seeing Vestergaard in a foot race with just about anyone. But the crosses didn't have anything on it. But I thought Djenepo played decently well for the portion of the match that he was there. But when he did go off, he was in tears going down the tunnel, and you probably didn't get to see that based on the fact that you were there. But he was in tears, and I don't think it was in pain because he was walking. It's probably just frustration because he's seemingly been injured, and this is the chance that he would have had to start a run of games. And what did you make of his performance up until the time that he had to go off?
You said about the spin he did on Trent Alexander-Arnold, and I picked up on that straight away. It was right down where I was actually, and I just thought that's the old Moussa Djenepo. We said when I spoke to you the other day that Djenepo doesn't look, he's caught in between at the moment. And that turn to happen, I just thought that was fantastic. And it's kind of just the old Moussa Djenepo coming out, that bravery, that ability to try things off the cuff. Like, I'm not sure Alexander-Arnold's been spun like that this season before. Mm-hmm. And I thought he looked really sharp. Sometimes he doesn't really know what he's doing sometimes, but that type of game suited him. Liverpool's high line, he had lots of space to run into. So, it's a real big shame that he did go off injured, but it's a story of his Southampton career, isn't it? He spends a lot of periods where he doesn't really do much, and then when it looks like he's finally picking it up in terms of his Southampton career, he then gets another injury. Afterwards, Hasenhuttl said that I think the physio team are going to investigate the amount of muscle injuries he does pick up. That could be an interesting thing to keep an eye on. Yeah,
absolutely. We'll have to keep an eye on that, and then also what changes are going to happen to the team as it goes. And in the first half, especially, I think we were kind of, it was more of an even game. I think as the second half wore on, Liverpool did push forward, and there probably would have been a conversation in the locker room about the fact that Liverpool were probably going to have more of the ball in the second half, and we were going to have to do some defending. And there were times where we couldn't really get out in the second half. But during the first half, we just seemed to be, we were taking one too many touches. We were, Walcott was offside several times. I think Ings was offside once or twice, Armstrong as well. And it was just like, had we released the ball just a half second earlier, maybe we create another chance on the break, and then we that changes the game a little bit. So I think if I'm going to be critical at all of the performance, that's the aspect that it was. But we don't often get chances to play on the break like that. Usually we are, either winning the ball back high up the pitch and playing it quickly, or we are and at least in recent weeks have been the team that's been doing most of the attacking and have most of the possession. So to see the guys kind of adjust a little bit could have been better, but I can't really complain about that. But the decision to bring Tella on for Djenepo, I thought that would mean that Walcott would shift out wide and Tella would go up top. And I think they kind of they alternated. They were pretty fluid there for a while. But what did you make of some of the players who did come in? Because one thing I wanted to ask you is, you look at Forster, Stevens, Diallo, who all make starts, who are not regular starters. Then Tella comes in, and Lundulu comes in a little bit much later than Tella. But which of those guys, I guess, impressed you the most tonight? And I guess made maybe a case for themselves to be able to start as we go forward.
I think you had to look closely to Fraser Forster in terms of this, because he hasn't played for a while. I think it's 3 years since his last home game. So I wanted to see how he was in terms of his confidence. wasn't so much the saves and stuff, because we know he's quite a good shot stopper on his day. It was just his clarity of thought when coming out, and obviously under Hasenhuttl, you have to be a good sweeper as a goalkeeper. And one thing that used to let Forster down was he used to stand in his line too much and stutter. And there was a good point in the 18th minute or so when, even though Salah was offside, you saw Forster stutter, but then he decided, you know what, I'm going to commit to it, and he managed to get a toe onto the ball. And that, for me, that just transformed him. He was confident, he came out of his goal, he was loud, commanded his box. I thought he was superb. Stevens, type of game he loves, backs to the rope, last-ditch tackles, moaning at referees. He loves that type of thing. I thought he was fantastic as well. But for me, my guy that for me was the best was Ibrahim Diallo. You saw in that midfield, it was such a tight area, wasn't it, with Liverpool's other three just cramming just Diallo and Ward-Prowse. But the amount of work them two had to get through, and how good they had to be on the ball when they did get it, and when they did get it, they didn't have much time on it. I thought they were superb, and especially Diallo. He's not been in the team, and it must be difficult for a guy from France or playing in France to come over and adjust to that type of tempo. But it's such a quick game, and for him to do that in his second Premier League start was fantastic.
You know, it's probably a little bit easier coming up top and you have your one strike partner and you're going to be, you know, making runs in behind or trying to win the ball back and things like that. And it's a bit more simple if you're trying to head the ball as it's coming out of the air versus in midfield where, you know, Romeu has played such a role in continuing to just help the team tick over and things like that. And you wonder, how's anybody going to slot in there, especially like you said, against Liverpool, against that midfield that it is dynamic and, you know, there's a lot of trophies there. There's a lot of experience there. And here's this kid from, you know, coming out of the French league at 21 years old that just kind of steps in and doesn't look out of place at all, which I think we have to give him a lot of credit. I think he definitely is. I don't want to say he should be starting ahead of Romeu or anything like that, but he's definitely going to be, you know, there and it should be in contention for, you know, getting minutes if we have to play more than one match in a week, which I think, you know, you look at the time we had between the last match and today, and you can see what the rest does for us. I think if we have to play this game, you know, Friday or Saturday, maybe we're in a little bit of trouble. But we were pretty good, I think, on the day. And I mean, are there any other moments in the first half that really stood out for you that you think need to be mentioned before we kind of move on to the second half and talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think it was just before half time. Southampton were keeping the ball around the back. I think Bednarek and Walker-Peters were having it. And Liverpool had this heavy press. There was about 6 or 7 trying to swarm that ball, especially down that right side. And most of the teams, I think Southampton would have last year, they would have just gone long. The easiest route would have just been Bednarek just to clear it down the lines and just, you know, just release any of the pressure they were under. But no, they were brave on the ball. Everyone wanted the ball. Nice quick combinations. They managed to beat the Liverpool press and then fire Ings down that right side. And I think Southampton won a corner from it. Yep. So that was, for me, although, you know, it didn't amount to much, it was just such a great indication of how far Southampton have come and how confident they are.
Yeah, I think that shows you, like you said, the confidence is there, and the fact that we were able to break that press shows, I think, the progression that we've made. Because as you said, last year we wouldn't even have tried it, and tonight we did play through their press several times, and I think it just shows, you know, that the team is progressing, and there's a time and a place to do that, and I think they made the right decisions tonight. When it was time to go long, it was time to go long, and I guess also we didn't bring on Shane Long, which. So it wasn't a long time, but there were a couple of instances early on where Forster went to go kick it and it didn't look great. He didn't quite look like he was up to, you know, had all the confidence, but as you said, he grew into it a little bit and, you know, he came up. There was the one, I think, late on where the corner comes in or the cross comes in and he just kind of like potted away and it went like, you know, 35 yards out for a throw or maybe. And it was just like, one, why are you punching it? Like, can you just grab the ball and hold on to it? But also, you know, we were used to seeing that from him. So, you know, there you go. But just before halftime, Liverpool had a run of play where they switched it from one fullback to the other. And we've seen it with Vestergaard for us going out to Kyle Walker-Peters and what that does to create space and kind of pull the defense apart. And Liverpool have done this for, you know, several seasons now where they go Robertson to Trent Alexander-Arnold or vice versa. And it started to get to us. And then you saw it again more going into the second half. And As the second half went on, I think the first 10 minutes of the second half, I want to say the possession was like 90% Liverpool or something like that. And I mean, that's hard to deal with, and that's hard to kind of defend that much. But then again, Saints also kind of, got moments where they were able to fight forward. And I don't really know what else to say about it other than that there was some heroic defending, and everybody kind of stuck to their task. And I think Kyle Walker-Peters deserves another shout out for the job that he did against Sadio Mane, who I would have punched in the face at least once based on some of the treatment he was giving to Kyle Walker-Peters today. And I really like Sadio Mane, but he was frustrating as an opposition player tonight. He was pretty frustrating to watch.
I think Kyle Walker-Peters, I think if he's not in with a claim to be in the England squad next time, I'm not sure what Gareth Southgate's doing. I think Kyle Walker-Peters is the all-round modern fullback. Obviously, everyone lauds Trent Alexander-Arnold about his attacking instinct. We see tonight is defensively, he's nowhere near the level of Walker-Peters. Aaron Wan-Bissaka's great defensively, not very good going forward. For me, if you want an all-round right back, I think Kyle Walker-Peters is there. He was brilliant today in his 1v1 duels. When do you ever see Kyle Walker-Peters get spun like Alexander-Arnold did against Gineppo? You never see that. He was calm. He never dived in once. And for a guy who's facing Sadio Mane, arguably the best left winger in the Premier League in the world, to do it with such a surety and just how calm he is at, 23 years old? The possibilities for him are endless. And for me, I think you've just got to savour Kyle Walker-Peters because he could possibly be playing for a much, much bigger club.
Yeah, I think somebody tweeted, Spurs must be really upset of having gotten rid of their best their best right back, and it's like, well, maybe they did, and he's just seems to be thriving, and he didn't back down from that tonight. He just had another outstanding game, and I think we say it almost every week now that even if we don't play well, he seems to be the player that is getting the recognition. And I'll be honest, I was kicking myself having left him in my fantasy team because they're playing Liverpool, but he proved that he should be there. I'm just going to stop worrying about that from now on. I think we're pretty used to seeing about one error a game from Saints in terms of goalkeeper issue or whatever. But tonight it was Alisson who kind of made kind of a terrible decision to come out, and Valerie was on the pitch, which we hadn't seen Valerie I think since June, if I'm correct. I think it's been that long, maybe against Arsenal. And he's on the pitch playing as a midfielder on the right, but he gets played through. Alisson comes out, and you just kind of go like, please put enough on this ball to get it in there. And he got it by him, but you could just see it was almost you've seen where I think it was in Germany where the ball goes through and it just gets held up by the snow and doesn't go in. That seemed to be like, even if the defender didn't get there, I don't think the ball was actually going to get all the way into the net. But I was really hoping, and I don't know, could you see that coming from Alisson? Was he just trying to do too much? Was that what all that was?
Well, I saw Jack Stevens play that ball to Valerie, who made a great run, and I think right wing might be his area to go down. But I think that conversation for another day. But out of nowhere, I just saw Alisson sprinting out a goal. I just thought, what is this guy doing? There's no real danger. I think the Liverpool defenders were covering in. There's no chance that Valerie was 1-on-1, and Alisson just gave Valerie a chance. He made his mind up for him. Obviously, with Valerie, he probably wasn't expecting a guy 6'3" to be charging out at him, so he caught by surprise. But yeah, as you said, he didn't put enough on it, and that would have been the perfect topping, wouldn't it, to the evening? It would have been 2-0, game over, no more tension. But Valerie, I thought when he came on, I thought he did well, and hopefully that's something to build on, and hopefully it's done his confidence a world of good.
Yeah. I guess we just had to hold the collective sigh of relief for just, a few more minutes until the final whistle blew. But that reminded me a little bit of when Armstrong was through, and I think against Aston Villa, maybe keeper was up for a corner and he just had to just get it in there. And he did. But I think Adams played that ball probably a much nicer passage of play. But anyway, we hadn't beaten Liverpool, I think, since the 3-2 in the league, since the 3-2 where we came back from being down 2-0 at halftime. I think Mane scored twice in that one. Hasenhuttl had never beaten Klopp, even going back to Germany. So there's all kinds of reasons to say this shouldn't have happened. But I think you can also see how far Saints have come, and Saints came into it with a game plan. They stuck to the game plan. They pressed when they had the chance, and they kind of just did the job. They defended deep when they needed to defend, and they took advantage of the one or two chances they had. But I mean, really, we prevented Liverpool from really having a lot of clear-cut chances as the game went on. They had 16 shots, but only 1 on target. We had 3 on target. They had 10 corners, but they didn't create anything from it. And I don't think, as we kind of spoke about earlier, that's not anything against Liverpool. I think that's us doing a good job of just putting them off their game just a little bit. And of course, if Liverpool are 100% fully firing, they can always put up, several goals in a match. But I think what we saw tonight was down, or if you're listening to this on Tuesday or Wednesday or whenever, what we saw at St. Mary's was down to Saints playing well, executing the game plan, and just putting their bodies on the line when it was necessary. And I think really, if we do all that and then they get a last minute corner and they tie it up, it's going to feel deflating. But I think we'll all look back at the team and say we did everything we could to make sure that didn't happen.
I think that's a perfect description of what happened tonight. There's periods where Liverpool got into some good positions, but then their final ball wasn't there, and that's because of Southampton's great defending. But I think Southampton just kept their shape so well. They were nice and compact. If any balls did go past him, it was out wide, and you saw Bertrand and Walker-Peters. I think Bertrand doesn't get enough credit either, because I think he marshalled Salah fantastically well tonight. He used all his experience, and I thought them two were superb tonight. I thought Walcott and Armstrong, we know what we're going to get from them. They track back. And for me, that's the way Southampton play at the moment. That's the way Hasenhuttl wants them to do. When they don't just go to the ball and close them down, jogging. But sometimes you see that other winger that doesn't really want to defend. Armstrong, Gineppo, Walcott, they all want to defend. They want to sprint to that ball. They want to win tackles. You see Gineppo, I think he's got one of the highest tackle rate in the Premier League. He wants to close people down, and that's a testament to what Hasenhuttl can make these players do. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think you see some of the guys that are coming on the pitch that are doing the same thing. That shows like this idea is trickling down towards the guys playing in the B team, and they are willing to come in and keep that same kind of rhythm and game plan going if they get brought in. And I just wanted to make mention. You look at the team that we the guys we brought in. You look at the bench, and it wasn't an overwhelmingly strong bench. We have injuries. There's no doubt about that. We probably need some more depth. I'm not going to say we don't based on one match, but to see the guys from the academy get a chance and to go up against the Premier League champs and the former world champs and do it with academy players and things like that. I think we have a lot to be proud of. I just want to give a shout out to Rob, who's at SFCRXBBO_. Says, I don't think people understand. We just beat the European champs with 5 academy products on the pitch and 11 in the squad. This is the Southampton way. And I think that's a true testament to what Saints are building, because we're not going to go out and buy Mesut Ozil or anybody like that. We're not going to go buy a playmaker. We're not going to ever probably be able to afford Thiago. But we can on our day kind of prove that we can play with those guys. And I don't think I have enough energy for us to sit back and do this every week, but twice, 3-4 times a year, I guess I'm here for it.
Surely that makes football better, doesn't it? I think the whole point of football is for the collective, isn't it? To get better as a team, for you to grow in strength and unity. And it's all right having all this money and stuff, but for me, there's something so authentic about a team that is not very good, that's low in confidence, that has got a history of being weak mentally, and just all of a sudden, not relying on any individuals or any multi-million pound signing to help them come through it. A bit like what Man United would do with Bruno Fernandes, for example, but just for every single one of them to stand up to get better together. For me, that's the best thing that can happen in football. Of course, Southampton would always want more money, but just something about tonight and how they performed is much more significant than any amount of money.
Yeah, absolutely. One final thing, maybe I don't want to end on a sour note necessarily, but when Walcott went off, I think he kicked the ball out so he could be subbed, which generally indicates some sort of injury. Was there any discussion of that post match, or any idea, or did you see anything that I missed on TV?
No, not as far as Theo Walcott concerned, there wasn't anything that Hasenhuttl said afterwards.
Okay.
It's just probably, since he's joined, he's been playing every single game, hasn't he? I don't think anyone expected him to play this amount, and he does get through a lot of work. I think it was just a tactical thing as opposed to
Okay. I just, could we withstand one more injury? I was just worried. So that's good to note. But Jacob, I just want to say thank you for joining the show twice in just a little bit more than 24 hours. You're always welcome, and thank you for your writing. Thank you for your hard work, and I hope that everything continues to go well. And I hope that at some point you get to sit back inside of a press box, so you don't have to sit out and freeze. But I think the good news is you don't have to go to Burnley. If people want to follow you on Twitter, it's at @J_Tanswell. You can find your writing at Prost. And it's all there. We'll put links in the show notes so people can follow along, and we'll put links to your Prost byline and archive in there as well, so people can go back and read some of the pieces that you've written. And I wish you the best of luck, and we'll talk to you soon. And that does it for this week's episode of the Southampton Delivery Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you've enjoyed it. Special thanks this week goes out to Jacob Tanswell. You can find him on Twitter at @J_Tanswell. And once again, all of the links to both his Twitter account and his previous articles are in the show notes. Please do check it out. If you don't already read Prost or visit Prost for whether it's with your football or boxing or whatever it is, I can say you should. The journalists they have working there are good. The people behind it are just good people. And it's one of those things that I can personally say and personally recommend and not ever feel guilty about. So give it a chance if you haven't already, and hopefully you enjoy it. Obviously, this is the first episode of 2021, so hopefully you are enjoying it. If you are enjoying the show, please consider leaving a review if the app you listen on allows you to do that. It really does help new people find out about the show. I'd also like to thank the partners of the show, the Saints Archive and the Southampton page. You can follow them on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. One will keep you up to date with everything going on around the club, and the other will get you up to date with all of the history and the culture and everything going on behind the scenes that helps make this club so great. So I can't thank them enough for their partnership and their support, and hopefully you will go on and support them as well. Links to everything are in the show notes once again. All music for the show comes courtesy of the Free Music Archive at freemusicarchive.org. The intro song is Epic Song by Boxcat Games, and the end of show credits that you're listening to right now is Aim is True by Poddington Bear. The show's logo was done by Matt Beeling of the We Are Southampton page on Instagram. Make sure you give it a follow, and we'll be back next week after the FA Cup match. And until then, we're together. We march on.